Gotta love it when Twitch is stupid. It's actually not Twitch's fault this time, it's more... This is actually my fault. I'm not completely ready. I have all the shit that I need booted up, I just don't have all the shit that I need booted up. Surely you understand. Obviously. Obviously, you understand the nature of my plight. You don't have to care. Let's see. Just gonna... Let's go... It's not quite the vibe I'm looking for. Give me a sec, chat. I'm looking for... Hold on. I'm not quite... Hold on, chat. I'm still fucking around with shit. I won't be long. Do 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 diddle 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 go diddle 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 yada da 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 da. I'm not stalling. You're stalling. Let's see. No one's here yet, so there's no need for me to be nervous. I think everyone assumed I would be late, and everyone kind of assumed correctly. I can't really fault them for that one. Not quite. I don't know why I'm being particularly picky about this, but I'm being picky. I don't know, man. I'm being picky. That's not quite the vibe. No. I think I could still do better. See here. Perfect. Oh. I've got nobody to blame but myself. Alright. Okay. Oh. Alright, so we have good things a-comin'. We have spooks. And we have stories, my dudes. And we have a glorious variety. I've got some winter-themed ones. Alright, what do I have on the docket today? I have modern Russian, Chinese, more Chinese, even more Chinese, Irish, Scotland, Irish, Scotland, Irish, Scotland, the police, British Columbia, Victorian England, New York, Texas, even more Texas, a book on demonic possessions, and Edgar Allan Poe. Skirsh? Oh, Scottish Irish. Yeah, I've got a lot of Scottish and Irish. Hello, hello, Sassy, and welcome to whatever this shit is. What is it? The world may never know. I don't even know half the time. And yet, we persist. So yeah, what do you want to start with? You have a preference, or should I just, go for something? I kind of want to dig into this Russian book if it has anything in it. Holy shit, the introduction is long. I don't care about what you have to say. Do it? Alright, here we go. Oh, shite. I gotta... Alright. Here we go. This one's called The Stove Makers. If I could ever scroll to the fucking beginning of it. The stove makers were very unusual people, and the trade of the stove maker is a very unusual trade, with a touch of mystery, even magic about it. I had known ever since I was a boy. Not so much from personal experience, it's true, but from the numberless stories, legends, and tales I had heard about stoves and stove makers. In the place where I was born and grew up was a stove maker of great renown called Mishechka. Mishechka? Mishechka. The Mishechka. We called him by his nickname, despite his advanced age, perhaps because he was so small, even though it was common with us grown-ups. Though it was common with us to call grown-ups and even old men by this particular diminutive form. Mishichka for Mikhail, Grishechka for Grigory, and so on. Mishichka was famous, among other things, for his habit of eating clay. This I had seen him do with my own eyes. When he relayed the burnt-out bottom of our own stove at home. After he had carefully mixed the clay with warm water and kneaded it with his feet till it glistened like butter, he took a good-sized lump on his finger, tucked it away in his cheek, chewed it, and swallowed it, smiling as he did so. Very much like a conjurer who wants to show that his trick isn't difficult to him in the least. I remember how Mishechka crawled inside our stove, and, sitting under its low vault, hacked out the old floor bricks between his parted legs with a special stove maker's hammer. How he managed to get there? It may have been small, but he was not a baby. I simply couldn't understand. One winter when I had a cold, my grandmother had tried to give me a heat cure in the stove, but it was so cramped, hot, and frightening inside that I yelled at the top of my voice and struggled out so violently that I nearly fell off the ledge and onto the floor. I realize now that the idea of Mishechka's innocent trick of eating clay in public was to stress his exceptional professional qualifications. It was as if he was saying, "Look, it's not everyone that can do this, and it's not everyone can build a stove." But Mishechka, like the good fairy in the story, was kind and harmless, and never used the opportunities inherent in his trade for doing people a bad turn. Not like some other stove makers who, if they took a dislike to a customer for some reason, could cause him a great deal of worry and trouble. He's like half Russian, half Scottish today. One favorite trick was to fix the neck of a broken bottle somewhere inside the chimney, so the stove would sing in all manner of dismal voices, foretelling ill luck and disaster for the house and its occupants. Or a brick might be hung up in a certain spot on the piece of string only strong enough to last the first trial heating. All would go nicely, then until the second or third day, when the string was burned through, causing the brick to fall and block the chimney, after which the stove would not light at all, and there was no way of finding out what was wrong except by pulling it to pieces and building it all over again. There were other tricks much of the same sort. Besides, even stoves of the same design differed from one another in the way they warmed up, or threw out their heat, or in the length of their life. So, by tradition, the people in our part stood somewhat in awe of stove makers, and went out of their way to please them. You must also take into account what a large place, both literally and figuratively, the stove used to occupy in the old peasant home. It was not only a source of warmth, not only a kitchen in itself, it was a bakery, a drying cupboard, a bathhouse, a laundry, and finally the cozy nook for a well-earned rest after long day work in the cold, after journey, or simply when you needed a cure of a variety of aches and pains. To put the thing in a nutshell, no stove means no home. This I have learned by experience, and of late have thought so much and so deeply about stoves and stove makers that I could probably write a thesis on the subject. I had been given a place to live just across the road from the school. It was a peasant's cottage attached to two similar ones in which other teachers were housed. My cottage was divided into 2 rooms, with a partition in the middle of a big 2 stove which jutted out into the front room as a cooking range, and into the back one as a huge Dutch-type stove. And it was this stove which for a long time caused me great vexation and misery, verging at times on utter despair. In class, during lessons, at any occupation, in any place, in public or in private, I had only to think of the house I lived in, and the stove in this house, to feel my thoughts were getting muddled, and I couldn't concentrate, and I was turning into an embittered and unhappy man. It was very difficult, almost impossible, to get that stove going. The range could be heated after a fashion, though for me, who was for the time being without my family, the range was not of so much importance. But soon we figured to light the Dutch stove to heat the back room, where I worked and slept. We had to open the windows and doors to let out the smoke, which filled the whole house. When I saw the caretaker struggling with it in vain, I tried to light the stove myself, but the same thing happened to me. Smoke poured out the door, out of the firebox, seeped into hidden chunks around the chimney, and even found its way out of the rings of the cooking range in the front room. It couldn't have smoked worse if I had forgotten to open the flue. Many of the devices we tried in hope of lighting the stove, drawing on the whole wealth of experience and resource of people who had to deal with 10 or more school stoves that were constantly in use. The caretaker Ivanovna and her husband Fyodor Matveevich, a cripple, were experts at the job. Each had his own method or system, quite different from others, but equally efficient. Briefly, the difference between them could be stated as followed. Ivanovna started with fire, and Fyodor with wood. I learned that both these methods thoroughly. Ivanovna, a nimble, competent little woman, would sit curled, bit of birch bark, a handful of shavings, a few scraps of newspaper or wood chips, and an otherwise empty stove, sit light to them, and gradually adding handful of chips and shavings would build up strong, lively flame, on which the logs could be piled until there was no more room for any other. Fyodor, on the other hand, mainly I suppose because he was a cripple and could not move about very quickly, preferred to build the wood up, first in the shape of a cage or a tent, carefully in selecting the pieces of wood and arranging them as if he were solving some complex problem of design. And only when he had done this would he set the fire to his structure of birch bark, shavings, or scraps of paper. The result was just as good as his wife's. The stove would get going quickly, the wood would burn evenly, there would never be any fumes, and the stove never cooled before it should. My stove, however, gave equally bad results no matter what method I used. I began to think quite seriously that some trick like the others played in the old days had gone into the making of it. In my misfortune, I gradually discovered the whole history of the unlucky stove. It turned out that nobody wanted to live in my cottage because of it. The history teacher, I was told, had put up with it for a while and then ran away. In the summer, Ksenia Ardakievna, the maths teacher, had lived there while the next door house was being done up, but in the autumn she moved out, even before the decorators were finished. The stove had built originally by German prisoners of war, after which it had been twice been rebuilt by various unknown stove makers, yet always with the same ill luck. 'Twas a ticklish matter for me to propose to the headmaster that it should be rebuilt once more. It would, of course, have to be done eventually, only I didn't want the fourth attempt to be a failure. I had been told that there was one man in the district, a certain Yegor Yakovlevich, who can build a stove guaranteed to work, but that lately he'd been very unwilling to take on such jobs. He had his railwayman's pension to live on, a house and a garden of his own, and he just wasn't interested. We sent him a note by his grandson in the fourth form. There was no answer. Fyodor went to see him once, and another time met him in the village. It was always the same story. Either he was ill, or he'd taken on a job somewhere else, and he couldn't promise anything for the future. Still, the matter couldn't be put off any longer. The November holiday was over, winter was coming on. Now I could get to sleep in my own room, only because I was used to sleeping in the trenches, and I had to correct my pupils' dictations and compositions at school in the teacher's common room when everyone else had come home. On top of everything, I was very much afraid that my wife, Lolia, in spite of all my stern warnings, might suddenly descend on me with her 5-month-old son before I could get a place fit to live in. The whole wretched business quite wore me out. It was not only the stove that got on my nerves, but all the talk and speculation about which went on among the other members of the staff, the headmaster, the caretakers even. I was sure the pupils as well, for children always know about all their teachers' private lives. Oy vey. Even today, when the whole ridiculous story of the stove is over and done with, I find it hard to make light of it in this telling. I feel I discuss it with a seriousness it scarcely deserves. But just to ask anybody, particularly a housewife who just has to make do with the stove heating, how much a bad stove means to her in everyday life, what effect it has on her temper, on her work. She will tell you that a bad stove can turn you grey before your time. Besides, I had to think of all this stove trouble from the point of view of Lolia, a town-bred woman and young mother too, who will have to live with me in this house. One morning, I was awakened earlier than usual by the reflected shine of the snow, which had fallen overnight, and a clear, simple, and hopeful solution occurred to me. I remembered the local military commandant's office and the major I had talked to there when I called the register as an officer for the reserve What a fool I was to not have thought of it before! I would go and ask him to help me. All he had to do was look up in his files of people liable for service to find somebody who had his name down as stove maker, and he would be the man for me. The Major received me in his tiny cubbyhole of an office, divided by a boarded partition from the rest of the big log-walled room. He had a plain, worried face, with wrinkles that folded up under his thick dark hair, making his forehead low and narrow, and giving him a very fierce expression. But now that face lengthened with sympathetic understanding.
"Well, that's not so easy," he began, lighting a cigarette. "It's not very common trade. It would be different if you wanted a cobbler or a smith. But a stove maker."
Suddenly he smiled, exposing his big nicotine-stained teeth and broad upper gum.
"Every soldier has his stove maker. I'll have a look."
It turned out that there were some stove makers. Only one had lost an arm, another lived too far away, a third was chairman of big collective farm, so there was no point in going to him, and the last one had only been born in 1926. What? Oh, okay. Note, this book was published in the 50s. So, the implication of that is that he's too young. I did a double take on that one. I was like, excuse me? The Major himself said the stove maker ought to be older than that. There were other candidates, also whom we rejected for one reason or another.
"I'll tell you what to do,"
the Major said, after he'd heard all about my troubles.
"You go and see that miracle worker, Igor Yakovlevich, yourself. They tell me he's very fine craftsman. Go talk to him. If that doesn't work, come back here and we'll think of something."
Again he gave me the big toothy smile of his, furtively covering his mouth with his hand, as people who have lost a front tooth do when they smile. Particularly women. This last suggestion of his, for all the sympathy he had shown, seemed to be nothing more than ordinary non-committal politeness. Next day, I set off along the muddy verge of main road through the village to see Igor Yakovlevich. The snow had fallen on unfrozen earth. There was nothing left of it except in the gardens and the yards where nobody walked. It was early. I was glad there were so few people about. I didn't want anyone to see me and know where I was going. I felt as though I were wearing boots too tight for me, that they were pinching me, and that though I tried to hide the fact, everyone knew about it and was sorry for me. Sorry, but at the same time a little amused. If there's anything I dislike, it's being the object of pitying amusement. I think I have been much more sensitive about it since I became a married man, had a family. I shouldn't really have cared at all, had I been a bachelor. But now I walked along, feeling the old woman in rubber boots by the well, girl loaf of bread on her arm and chewing bit of it, two little boys who greeted me at the crossroads. All these knew not only where I was going, but also that I had not long been married, that I was inexperienced and lacked confidence in arranging my domestic affairs. Perhaps they even know that my mother-in-law, who was a doctor in the town, a very handsome woman, by no means old, I was still rather unwilling to acknowledge the fact that she was a grandmother, had no very great respect for me, and I was either shy of or afraid of her. And that, when we lived in her flat, Lola and I, the baby had occupied the smaller room, while she had the big separate room all to herself. I had very little faith in the success of my mission, since I already had a picture in my mind of Igor Yakovlevich as an old man with many ailments
and little incentive to earn money. There is nothing worse than asking someone to do something he doesn't want to do or doesn't need to do. I turned off a sloping, slippery path along the fence one had to climb for safety, and entering a gate, went up to Yegor Yakolevich's glassed-in veranda. Veranda door was locked. Looking in, I saw the floor was strewn with cabbages, beet, and carrots. A long, severe face with straggling beard appeared at one of the windows. Hand signaled to me that the entrance was on the other side. I went around the house, climbed the muddy flight of steps, for propriety's sake, knocked at the heavy door padded with rags. "Pull it!" a hoarse yet powerful voice called within. "Pull it!" I went into a large kitchen with 2 windows. At the table, by the right-hand window, sat an old man. Not really old, but a pretty good age, with long, stern, rather sallow and unhealthy face, a wispy beard that had once been ginger, but now was brownish grey. On the table was a samovar, the remains of a meal, yesterday's presumably, and an empty vodka bottle. The man was calmly, and with what seemed to be, to me, a deliberate disregard of my presence, slicing an apple into a glass of tea. So this was Yegor Yakolovich. "Can't do it," he said briefly, and with kind of cold sadness, almost before I explained what had come about. I was standing on the doorstep. I could either take a chair at the table, if he offered it, or I could sit down on a wooden bench by the door, which was cluttered with boxes, felt boots, flower pots, other odds and ends. I could take a seat there without invitation, although conversation would be difficult, like trying to talk to somebody across the street. Nevertheless, I sat down on the bench again and began expounding my request, trying, of course, to put in a word here and there about his great reputation as a stove maker. I attempted to present my troubles with the stove in a humorous light, putting all the emphasis on my own helplessness and inexperience in such matters. But he treated all this as something in the nature of things, and had no interest whatsoever. Though he didn't interrupt me, the effect was as if he had said, "You can go on talking just as long as you like. It's all the same to me," while having my tea. He didn't even look at me. He was more occupied with looking out the window at the muddy, uninviting street, and the bushes in the garden, and the wet discomfort of the yard, all of which can be pleasant enough sight when you are sitting in your favorite corner drinking tea in the warmth of a good reliable stove. Obviously, he knew the value of his old man's morning hour for tea, a smoke leisurely, untroubled contemplation. Soon I began to feel the kitchen was very much too hot. Advertisement, I thought, and added to my discourse yet another servile compliment about how warm and nice it was in the house, out of the cold. "No, I won't take it on," he interrupted me again, moving aside his glass and saucer and proceeding to smoke. "But Yegor Yakolovich! Yegor Yakolovich, Yegor Yakolovich!" he mimicked me idly, pointedly ignoring the flattery implied in my zealous use of his name and patronymic. "I told you I can't do it, and that's that." It would be true to say that no district or even regional inspector of education or any other highly placed official with secretaries, telephones, and a queue of people waiting to see him could have spoken to me with such aloofness and languid arrogance. No matter how severe and remote, he would have to give me some sort of explanation as why he could not satisfy my request. "Why not, Yegor Yakolovich?" "Because," he said, in the same melancholy, impressive tone, "there's only one Yegor Yakolovich, and too many people are waiting on him to do things. Only got 2 hands, you know." He held out his big bony hands, the wrists protruding from the short sleeves of his much-waisted vest, and tapped his lofty forehead with his finger. 2 hands and 1 head, that's all. The gestures were of an explanatory nature, and though especially adapted to the level of my intelligence, they showed that Yegor Yakovlevich was far from underestimating his own importance. "But, Yegor Yakovlevich," I ventured, "if it's the fee you're worried about, for my part I'm quite willing. The fee has nothing to do with it." He gave a careless wave of his big heavy hand. "Everybody knows how much I charge. What I am saying is I won't take it on. Do it for one person and somebody else will come asking, so it's better not to do it for anyone. Then nobody will feel hard done by. There was a man here yesterday." He indicated the vodka bottle with the cigarette in his left hand. "Tried everything to persuade me." But perhaps you could, Yegor Yakovlevich." "I told you already." Again, he lifted his heavy-boned hand to the empty bottle, almost touching it with his little finger. "There was a man here yesterday." He indicated this empty bottle with such conviction, as evidence of some supplanted visitor, that I found myself regarding it almost as a living person, who, like myself, was also in dire need of Yegor Yakovlevich's goodwill. Then I realized a simple fact, which should have occurred to me at the onset. "Well, what about it, Yegor Yakovlevich?" I said resolutely, approaching the table. "Suppose we make a day of it?" I lifted the bottle gently to make my meaning clear. Yegor Yakovlevich looked up at me, his light blue eyes slightly bloodshot with age. The shadow of a smile appeared on his lips. "I don't use it of a morning." In the tone of his refusal, there was not only aloofness, but by didactic disapproval. "I never use it of a morning," he repeated even more firmly, and leaned on the table to get up, evidently wishing to show that the audience was over. "Of course, there was a man here yesterday." So I decided that to him I was simply a man, like the one who stood on the table between us in the shape of empty bottle. There was many of us and only one Yegor Yakovlevich. He saw me into the porch and then, standing at the open door, for some reason made a parting remark which contained a touch of sympathy for my disappointment. "If I happen to be passing, I may drop in." "Please do," I responded mechanically, although by now I couldn't see why in the world he should do so. I went away in the very depths of despair. I felt as if I had tried to do something low and mean and had been caught in the act. Why had I gone to this man begging and wheedling at the expense of my dignity? Let others do that. It wasn't my job. But what was I to do? Wait until the headmaster took up the matter personally? Until one of the stove makers who were supposed to be doing something at the station had time for me? Until my wife, after some disagreement with her mother, decided it would be better to live in the barn without her husband and arrived before anything was ready? The more I thought about it, the more depressed I grew, since I could not think of no one to put the blame on. I began to grumble about bad management in general. Here we were, building unique blast furnaces out of hundreds of different kinds of brick, erecting buildings which would stand for centuries as memorials to our life and work on Earth, examples to posterity of the greatest of our interests and aspirations. But as for building a stove, an ordinary stove, like the ones they must have had way back in the days of Kiev Rus, a simple heating installation for the home of working intellectual, a teacher of the Russian language and literature, that was impossible feat. Why am I getting so worked up over this? I feel this dude's frustration through the text. This really is a horror story. Oh my god. There's nothing scarier than not being able to fix home appliances. Dun dun dun. I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. Anyways, as I walked home, I built up an entirely irrefutable argument to the effect that such a situation was not merely intolerable, but abnormal. The phrases came into my head one after another, lyrically impassioned, bitterly sarcastic, full of conviction, truth, and clarity. Soon I was no longer telling myself these things. I was composing a speech which I was to deliver to a large audience somewhere, or an interview with some very high-placed personage. Or it may have been an article for the press, fervently and honestly drawing attention to the problems of providing for the needs of the rural intelligentsia. And I did not stop there. I began to touch on the existing forms and methods of instruction, and so on and so forth, little by little, without realizing it. I got away from my stove. I felt a tremendous desire to talk to someone about all of these things, to share my penetrating observations and unanswerable arguments, to recite aloud the purple passages of my mental tirade, forcing into quotation here and there as if it occurred to me on the spur of the moment. When I went to see the Major, I wasn't even considering his promise to think up something about the stove. He lived not far from his office in a semi-detached wooden house with porch exactly similar to one next door. I was told he had already gone off to work, so it was there I found him, in his quiet little office. He rose to meet me, quickly closing the thick notebook and pushing it away into his desk. The excitement on my face, produced by physical and mental exertion, must have made him think that I had been successful. "Well, how's it going?" I told him of my visit. Everything now struck me as rather funny. Much to my own surprise, I found myself giving humorous description of Yegor Yakovlevich and the self-important air he had assumed as he sat there drinking tea and turning down my request. I even imitated his gesture at the bottle. There was a man here yesterday. We enjoyed the joke together. "Well," said the Major, "it looks as if I'll have to build you a stove myself." "How do you mean? Out of bricks?" He laughed, showing his big teeth and lifting his hand to his mouth. It was only then that I noticed something likable and rather touching about that smile of his. It immediately transformed his gloomy, worried face. "You mean you want to remake the stove yourself?" "Yes, myself. I'd give the job to my assistant, but he couldn't do it." The Major seemed to find certain satisfaction in observing my confusion. "Tomorrow is Saturday, isn't it? We'll start tomorrow evening, then." It was all quite simple, yet at the same time a little embarrassing. After all, the Major was, in a sense, my commanding officer, and it was hardly the thing for him to hire himself out to me as a stove maker. "Don't you trust me? You've been in my house, haven't you? Didn't you see the stove? Made it myself. The wife likes it." "I do, of course. I'm very grateful. But then we'll have to reach some sort of agreement." "About my fee?" He prompted me with a cheerful readiness. "Don't worry, we'll strike a bargain all right." "But hadn't we'd better drop the subject. Fine thing that'd be. District military commandant supplementing his salary by building stoves on the quiet. I'd like to know what headquarters would say if they heard about that." "But suppose they get to hear about you making stoves?" "I'll let them. It's nobody's business but my own. I make these to myself too." He passed his hand over his tunic and trousers. "I get the cloth and make it up myself. Make all my children's outdoor clothes too. I could do the same for you." The following evening he arrived at my place with a bundle under his arm. It contained an old pair of summer uniform trousers and a tunic, also a stove-maker's hammer, a metal ruler, a coil of wire, and some lengths of string. He inspected the stove and the cooking range from all angles, then placed a chair in the middle of the room facing the stove, sat down and lighted a cigarette while he contemplated it. Hmm, he said after a time. What did you say? Nothing. It'll make a lot of mess. Oh, that doesn't matter. The caretaker will clean up afterwards. Have you got any wood? He asked. Yes, what for? To light it with. When you've built the new stove, you mean? No, first of all, we'll try to light it this one. I thought he must be joking, or else had forgotten all I had told him about my stove. But you'll only smoke the place out. Don't you believe me? Of course I do. But we've got to light it all the same. Where's the wood? There was some wood in the corridor, including several charred logs, which had been in the stove already. The Major stripped off his tunic and set about the job with such assurance that I began to wonder whether Ivanovna and I had perhaps overlooked something responsible for our failure in the past. Now the Major would light the stove, and it would turn out to be quite all right. That would be excellent. What a fool I should look after all the fuss I've made. To my great relief, the stove smoked just as much as it had when lighted by Ivanovna, Fyodor, or myself. No, Comrade Major, I said. What do you mean, no? It won't burn. All the better. That's just what we want, he said with a laugh. What we want to know is why it doesn't burn. The kindling had all burnt up, the thicker wood had nearly blackened without even catching. The place was full of smoke, as usual. The Major went outside to look at the chimney. I went out too. It was still light. How many times after lighting the stove I had run outside to see if a wisp of smoke was coming from the chimney. It took me back to my childhood. I remember how, as a boy, I sometimes used to stare very hard at the top of our chimney, perhaps just to see whether they had lighted the samovar at home, and the air would seem quiver about the chimney, but no smoke would appear. The Major went back into the house, took a length of string with a weight attached to the end of it, and climbed the step ladder onto the roof. I watched him lower the weight down the chimney and start fishing with it. It was like somebody was trying to hook a lost pail out of a well. Just then, a tall man in a half-length coat with a rusty-looking fur collar and diagonal pockets on the chest stopped in the road and, holding out his left hand to the peak of his cap, stared up at our roof. In the right hand he carried a light stick. When the Major pulled his string out the chimney and climbed down the roof, the man approached us. I saw that it was Yegor Yakovlevich. He nodded to me and, addressing the Major, asked, Well, how goes it? God knows, there doesn't seem to be anything in the chimney, but it won't burn. One might have thought that they knew each other for a long time and were both working on the troublesome stove together. We went into the house, which still reeked of smoke, and the Major and Yegor Yakovlevich began talking about the stove. They kept referring to him, meaning the unknown craftsman who had built it in the first place. Deserves a good hiding for a job like this, the Major suggested with gloomy conviction. But the old stove maker reported pacifically, A hiding won't do him any good. The point is, he wasn't a stove maker at all. Must have been a cobbler or something. Linking up two chimneys, one from range and one from stove, was beat too much for his understanding. While he spoke, Yegor Yakovlevich drew his stick around the stove like a pointer, tapping it and leaving marks on the bricks. Yeah, just a cobbler, that's what he was. He said this as though comparing the trade of cobbler with something immeasurably more complex, with art or poetry, for instance. The two stove makers lighted cigarettes and went on discussing the problem at length. They were like doctors discussing a patient, quite unconcerned by the presence of friends or relatives, assuming these only understood half their terminology, their unfinished phrases, their shoulders shrugging, their mysterious gestures. If you don't know how to do a thing, don't take it on, Yegor Yakovlevich concluded, not without an allusion, so it seemed to me, to present company. The Major did not take offense. I'm no stove maker, he said. I have to have stove for my own place, so I made one. When a man's in a jam like this, he nodded to me, somebody ought to help him, don't you think? Of course they should, said Yegor Yakovlevich, gratified at the Major's modesty. But help him so much that he does not have to ask for help anymore. Yegor Yakovlevich! I suddenly felt a fresh surge of hope. Yegor Yakovlevich, that's quite true. What about it? The major backed me up in the best possible fashion. I'd be your assistant, Yegor Yakovlevich. It would do me lots of good to work under a master of the trade like you. It really would. His mouth split open in that toothy smile and covered it with the hand in which he had held the cigarette. It was usually the plain folk who in the end find their way unerringly into the heart to the most eccentric and aloof. Well, what am I to do with you? Assistance must be rendered, said the stove maker. And that assistance must be rendered sounded just like the resolutions which came down to us from district and regional headquarters. Assistance must be rendered in this sphere or that. Yegor Yakovlevich sat down in the chair in front of the stove, just as the major had sat before him. He stared about, muttering to himself, assistance must be rendered. With a sweep of his stick, first in the direction of the major, then at the stove, he said with a kind of deliberate drawl, Well, my friend, for tomorrow I want to pull this stove down and pile the bricks neatly so none of them get broken. Understand? I noticed he addressed the major familiarly, as if he already considered him his subordinate, and although he must have noticed the major's tunic with his badges of rank hanging on the back of the chair, and this too, he was just like any other district or regional chief. The major said he would go up on the roof straight away. I of course expressed my readiness to help him, but Yegor Yakovlevich said there was no need. The stack's got nothing to do with it. The old one will do for us, only it's got to be propped up. Neither I nor the major knew how chimney stacks were propped up, so Yegor Yakovlevich gripped his stick at each end and explained the task in rough and ready manner, again addressing his remarks to Major only. I'm gonna skip the instructions because this is already long as fuck. Even from this piece of practical instruction, I could see the old man had not assumed his position of seniority without reason. Before I had time to raise the question of payment, he departed with a nod, leaving rather mess on the floor from his boots and his homemade galoshes cut out of the inner tube of a motor tire. But in the evening, Major and I had pulled down the stove, leaving the range untouched, and the propping up the stack as instructed. I'd been afraid of this propping up might lead to some disaster, but the major coped with the task with confidence which belied his inexperience. So far as I can see, he was one of those excellent fellows you often find in the army who tackle any job fearlessly, basing themselves on the well-known preposition that man can do anything if he tries. He made the props we needed out of... Okay, this is just detail stuff. Holy shit, how long is this? Oh my god, this goes on for a while. I don't know if I'm that invested in it. Holy crap, how did they write a 100-page story about a fucking stove? Anyway, they fixed the stove. I don't know why it was so fucked up, but I have a feeling nobody would terribly object if I abandoned this. What are you thinking, chat? Give me some feedback here. This is long as hell. Are we invested in the stove or do we skip? Up to me? Oh boy. Alright, I'm gonna skim and see if I can just give a summary. Basically, the Major and the stove maker start discussing literature. The dude just helps him build. Troversley brick, call this brick, da 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 da. Major burst out laughing. Not once use a square ruler, da da da, no need for it. Well, he doesn't use any measuring tools. Okay. At this stage, what would happen now? Gained a firm hold on the logs, and it went better and better. Okay, so they fixed the stove. With flourish. Everybody knows how much I charge. I remember his words, but I was worried about it. Stove was burning splendidly. I forgot. Let's see if the smoke was coming out the chimney. It must be. Never mind that. He seemed to. Never mind. Please tell me what I owe you. It's the same as him, 50-50. We worked together and you ought to get your share too. You helped us. I'm here on quite a different basis. I'm not entitled to anything. I'm an expert. Okay, so they argue over, like, payment. Payment would be no burden to me or on the wrong track, as if I would take money from our school. I'm not hard up as that. Thank the Lord, I'm not going to allow that kind of thing. Touchiness sprang from the fact the Major had again stolen a march on him, refusing payment in advance. The Major heard all this. Gazed at Igor Yukoulovich with amused and embarrassed look. Cross with me. No, I do ask. And though he had never seen the Major before, stared at his tunic with the insignia. Troubled bow. Why should I be? We did a good job together. I can't see what we've got to quarrel about. He was now addressing the Major formally. Evidently he considered him no longer subordinate, as he had done while the work was in progress. Yes, they all have drinks. Navna, she saw the smoke coming out of the chimney. With a drink. Now he's bragging that he can build all kind of stoves. I volunteered to see him home, not only because he was obviously a little tipsy, because I was still hoping to be able to get him to agree with some sort of payment, but he thanked me ceremoniously and said goodbye. See me home, I'm not a girl. Well, he's a tough nut, I must say. The stove began to dry out, even heated the room a little. Should never run into any more trouble in all the days of my life. Okay, so basically, they fixed the stove and they all lived happily ever after. Oh my god. Okay. So, I love Russian literature, but god damn, they can talk about absolutely fucking nothing forever. And if I were reading this by myself, I would enjoy it a lot more. But I'm just like, you guys came here for spooky stories, not to hear about the horrors of trying to fix a fucking stove. You know what I'm saying? So, let us continue on to the spooks. Alright. Let me switch to let's hear some police stories. Why not? Da 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 da. Here. Let's do Eyes. By Bill Coffey. What a fucking name. In the summer of 1981, I was a young and eager cop working out of Portland, Oregon's infamous North Precinct. The often heard refrain of the Portland Police Bureau was, you screw up, you get sent to... You screw up, you get sent to North Precinct graveyard shift. Happily, I hadn't messed up, but I was the newbie and working with a senior officer on day shift. Actually, I would have preferred graveyard because it was such a blistering hot summer that year. According to the National Weather Service's historical data, August 8th, the day in question, was a record-breaking 107 degrees. Oof! That's hot. My partner had court, so I was sent out alone, with a caution from my old sergeant to watch myself. Ours was a rough beat, Portland's version of a ghetto, where violence was as common as the hookers that lined the streets. But as it turned out, my problem wouldn't be from any of the usual shots fired, knifings, and felony car stops. Mine would be from, well, I'm not exactly sure. I told dispatch I was clear and immediately sent to meet a complainant? How do you say this word? Complainant. I think it's complainant. We'll go with that. Complainant that had called in a welfare check, which was typically a one not seen call. This entailed the police knocking on the door, checking neighbors, and, depending on the circumstances, forcing entry into the residence. Usually the person in question was in the hospital or taken an unannounced vacation. Sometimes the person had died alone inside their home. I was hoping it wouldn't be the latter, especially on such an oppressively hot day. The house was in a seedy neighborhood, and I recognized it from previous contact several months earlier, in which I had warned the middle-aged man about his car's expired plates. He was a Vietnam War veteran, having served the early years of the long conflict. He said he was struggling with his faith and spirituality, and he told me a little bit about the B'nai B'rith stickers covering his bumper. As a vet, I had a soft spot for others that served, so I just gave him a warning to get his license squared away. A grim-faced mailman met me on the sidewalk, and I asked him the usual who, what, where, and when questions. Through the overgrown lawn, full mailbox, and the accumulation of daily newspapers that made it clear how to proceed. Mailman walked with me around the old large house. As far as police calls go, this was a no big deal situation, but I remember feeling somehow grateful he was with me. He was a talker. He'd lay chatting on about everything and nothing. Kinda like the dude we just listened to rant about his stove for close to an hour. No doubt thrilled by the little departure from his routine letter delivery. We stopped at what happened to be the kitchen window on the inside. Several large black flies flitted along the dirty sill. I knew what that meant. Yep, somebody did. Somebody is very dead. Over the mailman's constant chit-chat, tried to decipher all the heavy radio traffic on my portable to see if there was any neighboring beat cars might be available to assist. Finally, I asked dispatch, and I was told that every North Precinct car was tied up, as was East Precinct's. Even supervisors were taking calls. I was on my own. The back porch was enclosed, its feeble doors secured by an old-fashioned hook and eye latch. Retrieved my shotgun from the car, turned to the back porch, and easily undid the lock. With the shotgun? All while the enthralled mailman watched from a distance. He remained outside as I moved through the dark doorway. I don't know what I expected as I stepped inside the door to the kitchen. A dead body, maybe, bloody carnage, signs of burglary. But what I could see from where I stood, there was none of that. It was only an empty kitchen, but not for long. One of the largest dogs I have ever seen before or since stepped into the kitchen through the far doorway. The muscle-dense beast, black and gray and unkempt, nearly growled at me nor postured. He just stared at me. Stared into my eyes so intently, so profoundly, that it chilled me. despite the intensive heat of the closed house. I know now that it was an Irish wolfhound, one of the tallest of dogs, even towering over Great Danes. A dumb animal he was not. Those unblinking eyes exuded intelligence. And something else. Even today, I can't put into words what that something was, other than to say I could see a presence in them. Of what, I don't know then, and I don't know now. But those eyes, what were in them, burned into my mind. No way did I want to force an encounter with a great dog, so I asked dispatch to have animal control officer come to the house and get him. The mailman stuck it out with me, just long enough to see the wolfhound extracted from the place and witness what I had told him about the creature. The animal didn't fight or resist animal control, but it never once broke eye contact with me. Even when it got turned this way and that way as the officer maneuvered him into the truck, the dog continually turned his body toward me, or twisted his head about to burn me with the intensity of his eyes. The dog finally gone, as well as the mailman, and still no backup available for me. I chambered around into my shotgun, announced my presence, and re-entered the hot kitchen. This time I went further than I had before. The strange dog had stopped me, but I had only gone a few steps before a dreadful scene stopped me again. It wasn't another great beast, but rather a massive pool of coagulated blood that spread into an empty dining room. I turned down my radio so as not to announce my movements and began to stealthily follow the blood trail, which led me into a bedroom where I found yet another large pool. Blood was on a wall, too, splashed crimson, nearly as high as my shoulders, and next to an open door. I moved toward it, paused to listen, and then peered around the door facing into a small bathroom. The blood trail continued across the floor and disappeared through another doorway into what looked like another bedroom. Doors make cops nervous. Much time is spent in the police academy and in ongoing training learning the safest way to go through a door, where on the other side are often surprises. Some dangerous, some deadly so. We learn to go in as a team with well-trained strategy and tactics. But I was a little more than a rookie, and I was by myself. The big house and its rooms were thick with heavy heat, stench, and filth. My senses shut all of those things out of my mind, leaving only the two most needed at the moment, my ears and my eyes. Both functioning at 110%. I moved quickly through the bathroom, stopped at the door, facing first to listen, and then a quick peek around the bathroom door into the semi-dark bedroom. The blood trail led across the floor to a rancid, disgusting mattress. On it, the body of the old Navy veteran sprawled naked on his back, his mouth agape in an expression of horror, his eyes open, beginning to putrefy. I looked down at his neck, and I immediately wished he hadn't. His throat was mostly gone, ripped and torn apart as if by some ghoulish fiend. A yawning opening of red shredded meat and white was all that remained of once what was his throat and spine. As horrific as it was his eyes. I might have thought at that moment, at least for an instant, about the eyes being a window to the soul and all that. But there was something else about him that chilled my thoughts. It was as if his eyes had looked through a portal and saw something dark and dangerous. As if they had seen hell and its tortured beings. My training overrode those thoughts long enough to continue clearing the house. Then, not entirely certain of what I'd seen, I returned to the bedroom and the obscene spectacle on the bed. When I could no longer look upon the terrible sight, I lifted my eyes to the wall behind the bed had a framed testament from B'nai B'rith. I started to read it when I felt a very real sensation of being watched. Not watched, studied. This was followed by an extremely heavy, dark, and oppressive energy pressing down on me. It was as if the room itself was drawing breath to assist the crushing weight. So intense was this sensation that I felt compelled to leave not just the room, but the entire house, and order the medical examiner from outside, away from what occurred inside the walls. The medical examiner showed up. I had to go back in and escort him through the dreadful scene. He told me the dog had savaged the dead man's throat to seek moisture in the awful heat of the closed house. The blood pools were a result of how the man chose to take his life. Oh, I should not stop reading when the next paragraph explains what I'm confused about. The can of Drano he ingested had literally burned out his digestive tract and internal organs. No crime had been committed, the ME confirmed, and then left. "I'm having a busy day," he said. No doubt the result of 107 degrees. I wouldn't have many other suicides during my long police career, but the accusation in those two sets of eyes, the man's and the dog's, have remained with me to this day. I understand that our minds are a powerful organ, and that it's possible I underwent some sort of transference of stress so common to war veterans that are expected to hide or completely bury their emotions. But the intrusive memories and mental images that would appear seemingly from nowhere, the vivid recall of the dog, the man, and the blood, perhaps triggered by something, will not leave me. They're infrequent now, and I've put them to rest. I realize they're probably just the result of an accumulation of events over a long career. As a street cop and longtime member of SWAT, I've faced a lot of evil during my career. But nothing like what I experienced weighing me down in that house. I'm not deeply religious, but I do have a sense of spirituality, and I'm convinced I experienced the presence of something of truly unusual that hot day in August, so many years ago. Some type of evil entity. Whatever it was, I know it was something at once dark and terrible. Now that's a spooky story. As terrifying as stoves are. I don't know, man. Stoves are pretty scary. Alright, how we doing, Sassy? Let's see. Let's go to New York. Hanging on by a sleepy thread? No problem. This might be a shorter one than usual because I feel my throat burning a little. But we'll do one or two more. Let's do... Sorry, I'm looking. Let's do the Galloping Hessian from Terrytown. The soldier was given command of the Prince Hereditaire Regiment just days before they set sail from Germany at the behest of George III, King of Great Britain and ruler of the German Principality of Hanover. The British king did not have enough soldiers in his own army to supply the needs of his commanders in America, so he signed a treaty with Frederick II, the Prince of Hesse Cassel, who often rented out his soldiers in order to make ends meet. Soldiers arrived in the American colonies on August 1776. "We are not true mercenaries," the soldier mused, as he came ashore his first day in the New World. "We receive no compensation for our services beyond our daily bread. It is our prince who grows rich from our military skills, not us." He must have spoken that last bit aloud, for his friend laughed and said, "That's so true, mein friend. But let not General Kniphausen hear you say so." The soldier was quickly discovered that the American general, George Washington, oh geez, this is old, was resting on Harlem Heights with the main body of his army. The Americans were watching the movements of the British General Howe, from 5-sided earthwork named Fort Washington. They named the fort was the principal fortification within the American lines, standing 230 feet above tide water, with strong ravelins and outworks, and 34 great guns. On October 12th, General Howe ordered the British troops to land on Throg's Neck. Ayy! I know that place! A low peninsula jutting out from Westchester County. Washington immediately sent forces to oppose the landing, ordering the American troops to occupy Lower Westchester. In spite of fierce opposition, the British took the posts in the heights of New Rochelle, across the road leading to White Plains. Hey, I know this place pretty well. It was this time that the soldier and his regiment, under the command of General Kniphausen, marched to support General Howe, along the fresh-arrived corps of German troops. To prevent his army from being surrounded by the British, Washington moved all of his troops into Westchester save one garrison ordered to hold Fort Washington at any cost. The American army marched in 4 divisions, moving up the valley of the Bronx River and forming entrenched camps from the heights of Fordham to White Plains. On October 21st, George Washington made his headquarters near the village of White Plains. On October 28th, after almost daily skirmishing, the American and British armies, each about 13,000 strong, met in a battle array at the village of White Plains, which is now a city. The Americans were encamped behind entrenchments just north of the village, with the hills in the rear to retreat to. In addition, nearly 1,600 Yankees, with 2 pieces of artillery under the charge of Captain Alexander Hamilton, had taken post on Chatterson Hill. The British Army approached the Americans in 2 divisions, right and left. General Howe, inclining his army to the left, planted almost 20 field pieces. Under cover of the artillery, the British troops constructed a bridge across the Bronx River and sent British and German battalions to ascend the steep, wooded Chatterson's Hill. The soldier was among the Hessian commanders sent to drive the Americans from the hill. Hamilton's cannon battered at the troops, and the soldier was forced to pull his men back to wait for reinforcements. When they arrived, the soldier led his men in a charge up a gentle slope. The soldier rode directly into a tempest of bullets, one of which drove into the forehead of his horse. Horse and rider both fell to the ground together, but the soldier leapt up immediately, so his men could see he lived. As he straightened to full height, a cannonball blew his head from his shoulders, and the soldier fell dead on the ground. He did not see his men take the hill and force the Americans to retreat to Washington's camp near White Plains. Howe decided not to attack Washington's entrenched camp without reinforcements. Additional British troops soon came to his aid, but a severe rainstorm set in before they could attack, and it raged until twilight on October 31st. Washington, perceiving Hoey's tactical advantage, withdrew his troops under the cover of darkness toward the Croton River. Hoey did not follow. Instead, the British fell back and encamped on the heights of Fordham. After a council of war, Washington decided to retreat to New Jersey with a large portion of the army, leaving New England troops on the east side of the Hudson to defend the passes in the Highlands. For many days following the Battle of White Plains, local residents and the British troops gathered up the dead and buried them. The Hessian soldier's body was discovered on Chatterson's Hill, but no one located his head, and so he was interred headless into the graveyard near Terrytown. In the months following the battle, many good people living in Terrytown went out of their way to avoid passing the cemetery after dark. There was something restless about it, folks said. Strange lights would appear in the graveyard around midnight, and one woman claimed to have heard the sound of an invisible horse galloping madly down the road. Most people treated the rumors as a funny joke and ignored them. However, a few of the older residents took care not to mention a folk belief they had learned during childhood, that evil spirits and ghosts did not care to cross running water. If the spirit haunting the graveyard ever bothered anyone, the person should make for the bridge as fast as his legs would carry him. One cold winter night, early in the new year, a certain Dutchman named Hans left a tavern in Terrytown and started walking to his home near the hollow nearby. His path led to the old cemetery where the Hessian soldier was buried. At midnight, Hans came within the sight of the graveyard. The weather had warmed up during the week, and the snow was almost gone from the road. 'Twas a dark night, with no moon, and the only light came from his lantern, and few remaining patches of snow that sparkled when they caught the light. Hans was nervous about passing the graveyard. He stumbled along, humming to himself to keep his courage. Suddenly, his eye was caught by a light rising from the ground in the cemetery. He stopped, his heart pounding in fear. "Who's there?" he called, trying to sound casual. The only response was a whooshing sound, as the white mist burst forth from an unmarked grave and formed into a large horse carrying a headless rider. Hans let out a terrible scream, and the horse leapt toward him at full gallop. He took to his heels, running as fast as he could, making for the bridge where he prayed the fearful apparition would disappear. Hans could hear the pounding of ghostly hooves behind him as he stumbled suddenly and fell, rolling off the road into a melting patch of snow. The headless rider thundered past him, and Hans got a second look at the headless ghost. It was, he realized, wearing a Hessian commander's uniform. Hans waited a good hour after the ghost disappeared before crawling out of the bushes and making his way home. After fortifying himself with schnapps, Hans told his wife about the ghost. By noon the next day, Hans' wife had spread the story all over Terrytown. The good Dutch folk were divided in their opinions. Some thought that the ghost must be roaming the roads at night in search of his head. Others claimed that the Hessian soldier rose from the grave to lead his men up in a charge up Chatterson's Hill, not knowing the hill had been taken by the British. Whatever his reason, the Galloping Hessian continues to roam the roads near Terrytown on dark nights, from that day to this. I actually knew that story. That's a story they've been telling us since I was in middle school. It's like part of the folklore near where I live. Headless horseman,
Ichabod Crane and the Sleepy Hill. Yeah, there's quite a bit of folklore in southern New York, actually. I think we will wrap up with a little bit of Chinese. And then I might do a little mahjong, why not? Let me see. Hill? Thought it was hollow? I mean Sleepy Hollow. I don't know why I said hill. I said hill because I'm stupid. Alright. Trying to think. Grace and Pine we've already done. Nah, just human. Alright. Let's do... A passion for snakes might be an SFW. Let's do Scorch Moth the Taoist. The household of Hanlin Academy-ish Dong was troubled by fox spirits. God, it's always foxes with these people. Tiles, pebbles, and brick shards were liable to fly around the house like hailstones at any moment. Oh, so poltergeists. And his family and household were forever having to take shelter and wait for the disturbances to abate before they dared carry on with their daily duties. Dong himself was so affected by the state of affairs that he rented a residence belonging to Undersecretary Sun and moved there to avoid his troubles. But the fox spirits merely followed him. One day, when he was on duty at court and described this strange phenomenon to his colleagues, a senior minister mentioned a certain Taoist master who lived from the northeast by the name of Jiao Ming, Scorched Moth, who lived in the inner Manchu city and issued exorcist spells and talismans reputed for their efficacy. Dong paid the man a personal call and requested his aid, whereupon the master wrote out some charms in cinnabar ink and told Dong to paste them on his wall. The foxes were unperturbed by these measures, however, and continued to hurl things around with greater vigor than ever. Dong reported back to the Taoist, who was angered by this apparent failure of his charms, and came in person to Dong's house, where he had set up an altar and performed a rite of exorcism. Suddenly, they beheld a huge fox crouching on the ground before the altar. Dong's household had suffered long from this creature's antics, and the servants felt a deep-seated sense of grievance toward it. One of the maids went up to it to deal it a blow, only to fall dead on the ground. "This is a vicious beast," exclaimed the Taoist. "Even I could not subdue it. The girl was very foolish to provoke it." He continued, "Nonetheless, we can now use her to question the fox." Pointing his index finger and middle finger at the maid, he pronounced certain spells, and suddenly she rose from the ground and knelt before him. The Taoist asked where she hailed from. "I come from the western regions," replied the maid, in a voice that was clearly not of her own, but that of the fox. "We have been in the capital here for 18 generations. How dare such creatures as you dwell in the proximity of His Imperial Majesty? Off with you at once." The fox voice was silent. The Taoist thumped the altar table angrily.
How dare you disobey my orders? Delay a moment longer, and my magic powers will work on you harshly. The fox shrank back fearfully, indicating his submission. The Taoist urged him once more to be gone. Meanwhile, the maid had fallen to the ground again, dead to the world. 'Twas a long while before she regained consciousness. Oh, she came back? Oh. All of a sudden, they saw 4 or 5 white lumps of some strange substance go bouncing like balls one after another along the eaves of the building, until they were all gone. Then peace finally reigned in the Dong household. It's always foxes with these people. It's never not foxes. Alright, we'll do... one more. Just deciding which. They'd be crafty? Oh, they're very crafty. Let's do... There's a whole section in this book on homosexuality? Why? God, this book is weird. Okay. Here's another one about foxes, in which hunters expurgate... Oh, honey, I think that means exercise, but I'm gonna need to look that one up. Hold on. Expurgate definition. Remove matter thought to be objectionable or unsuitable. Okay, yeah. In which hunters clean out the fox fairies. In the town of Yuanhua, in the Haichang County, there lived a wealthy family whose habit it was to work on the lower floor during the day, thus leaving the 3 bedrooms of the upper floor vacant. One day, one of the women went to fetch some clothing on the upper floor, and discovered that the door to the stairwell was bolted from the inside. Puzzled, she thought to herself, "Who could have bolted the door? Everyone is downstairs." Finding a crack in the wall boards, she peeked inside, and saw a man sitting on the bed. She assumed he was a thief, and promptly called for the rest of the family to come. The man, however, said in a loud voice, "I'm moving in to live in this floor, and my family will soon be here to join me. I'll borrow your beds and tables, but the rest of your possessions will be returned immediately." He thereupon threw various boxes and miscellaneous items out the window, onto the ground below. Not long after, the family heard a crowd of people milling about. They peeked through the wall boards and saw the room was filled with people young and old. This crowd soon began clanking bowls and singing, "My lord, my kind host, you have guests who have come from afar, but you have not provided even one glass of wine to welcome us." In trepidation, the family quickly prepared 4 tables with flagons of wine out in the courtyard, and all 4 tables were magically whisked upstairs. After the guests had feasted, they threw all the unwanted cutlery and china out the window. For a while after this, there was no more obnoxious behavior. All the same, this wealthy family decided it best to hire a Taoist priest to perform an exorcism. But in the midst of their discussions, the people upstairs began to sing, Taoist dogs, which of them would dare to deal with us?" The next day, a Taoist priest did come, but just as he was placing his exorcism paraphernalia on the altar, he appeared to be hit by something. He rushed out terrified and unsteady on his feet, his idols and instruments flying about behind him. After this event, there was no peace from the top floor day or night, so eventually the owners went to Jiangxi to seek the assistance of the Taoist high priest Zhang, who ordered one of his followers, a Taoist cleric, to perform the exorcism. Upon hearing the news, the demons on the upper floor recommenced their singing. High priest, your magic won't work on us. Taoist cleric, it's a waste of your time to come. Not long after the cleric arrived, but suddenly, as if somebody had grabbed him by the head, he was tossed to the ground, leaving his face bloodied and his clothes torn. The cleric said with considerable shame, "These demons have tremendous power. We will succeed in expurgating them only if we attain the assistance of Reverend Xie." Reverend Xie resided in a temple in Chang'an County and was promptly invited to perform the exorcism. He erected an altar and began his task. This time the demons had not recommenced their singing, and so the wealthy family were hopeful of success. Suddenly, a streak of red light appeared in the sky, and with it an old white-haired man. This mysterious visitor went into the stairwell and called, "No need to be scared of this Taoist, Xie. I can conquer his magic." Xie sat at the front door of the hall and began chanting his incantations, then threw a bowl onto the floor, where it ran along at great speed. Several times it spun around the hall, then made as if to go up the stairs, but each time it failed. After a while, the sound of bronze bells came from the upper floor, and with this, the bowl immediately fell to the ground. No matter what he tried, Xie wasn't able to get it spinning again. Startled, he said, "I've exhausted my powers. I can't exorcise these specters." He thereupon picked up his bowl and left. From the upper floor came the sounds of great rejoicing, and after this victory the specters' mischief reached unprecedented heights. And so it continued for half a year, till one midwinter night there was a huge snowstorm. A dozen or so hunters came to the house, requesting shelter, and received the hesitant reply that although rooms were available, the house was plagued by demons. One of the hunters replied, "I'll bet you they're fox fairies. Hunting foxes is our specialty. Provide enough alcohol for us. I'll get drunk. We'll repay you by driving those foxes out." So, the family provided them with food and drink. The house remained brightly lit all night, while the hunters reveled to their heart's content. When they were all thoroughly drunk, they loaded their rifles with gunpowder and fired into the air. Smoke and dust billowed, and huge commotion ensued that lasted through the night. The family was extremely anxious lest this caused the demons to heighten their mischief-making, but instead, everything was quiet and peaceful by the next morning. Several days passed, and still not a sound was heard from the upper floor. The family decided to venture upstairs to investigate. They found the floor scattered with fur, and all the windows flung open. The demons had gone. And with that, my voice is dying. So I'd say let's wrap this with a small bit of mahjong. I doubt that any people watching the VOD, nor the Honorable Sassy, should mind that. And should I be mistaken? My deepest apologies. There will be more story streams, you can bet your bottom dollar on that. Just not this very instant, because apparently my throat is scratchy. It's not the vid. I'm fine. I haven't been around people, so it wouldn't be the vid.
I've been around, exactly. I don't know about the honorable bit, but the rest is true. Ah, you're plenty honorable. You're one of my best friends. I'd say that's honorable enough. You know, not everyone gets to be my friend. You know, we turn most people... Ugh. We turn most people away at the door here. Alright. Ah, it's just the truth, Sassy. You don't gotta worry about anything. I still owe you 3 times as much. Alright. Let's see if I can refrain from fucking up. Though, that does not seem promising. Alright, so those are trianged. Those look good. I'm motivated to get rid of the 6. This 2 can go. You do more than I realize. God, I hope. I hope that's true. Piss. I should have... that was not a smart play on my part. And that was sticky too. Good. Those souths look alright though. This 2, hold on. Alright, now that 2's triangulated. I swear I've seen another 5 somewhere, but I guess it's nowhere I can use it. That 7's gonna be a dick. I think I need to get rid of that because I need to know where shit is. Okay. That should help. At least on that front, that should help. That can go... Is this 8 in any way helpful? Potentially. I'm motivated to get rid of that. Why not? That 9 is there. Those 7s are... Actually, if I get rid of... fuck, I did that, though. I'm gonna gamble that. Because I need to do things. I need to do things. 5 is a bit of a fucking problem. Ah, shite. Yeah, I know about that. No matter what I do, it's not gonna be good. Let's see here. That's great. I could do that. I know that that's there. There's not a lot I can do about that, though. That's trianged. Can I get rid of this in any way? Shit. Gonna go there. That'll give me that. That'll give me that at least. That's still just inscrutable. This is gonna have to go. I can probably get there, though. Yeah, this I can... No. Okay, well, here's hoping that's not a dead end. That 5 is in the way of something. Oh, that would have been helpful to get approximately 85 million years ago. But, you know, I'll take it now. That's not great. Okay, let's try this shit. Those look okay. Probably. These look alright. Probably. I know I need to get rid of that. Oh, this is hard. This is some... This is hot garbage. Okay, well, I clearly made mistakes here. That was a pretty rough board, though. This one has to go. I can't get rid of it. Good. That's good. That 7's triangulated. I'm gonna get rid of these. That solves that problem. Oh god, can you please have solutions instead of more problems?
fuck. Alright, great, thanks. Oh, shit. That's exactly what I didn't want to see happen. That nonsense up there. This has to go. I don't know. This 8's not gonna help me. Those 5s are almost helpful, but they're not quite... Okay, thank you. Ah, balls. And now we're trapped up against the same fucking problem here, huh? This 5... I mean, it's gotta go. These 7s have to go. Gonna try to tear that down. Gives me a 1. That's actually what I needed for once. I don't think I can afford to wait for that bit to come along. These 5s are triangulated in the worst way. I know about this. I think this is a better move just because I need to access that crap over there, but I mean, it's all bad. Let's see here. Can I do anything with this? Okay, that gives me an 8. I don't really... For once, I don't need that. Okay. Okay. I can get that to... work, maybe, possibly. That's not good. Alright, we gotta get rid of you. What the fuck? How? Alright, oh no. This is... Yeah, that's not gonna happen, is it? Okay. Unless I start pulling some meme shit, we are screwed. Alright, that 7 can go, that can go. That's fine. Okay, just do the thing I need you to do. That gives me a perfect... I don't... With that multiplier, that's gonna be... I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I'll give it my best shot. I should have done that differently, but that's okay. I can do this, can do that. This 4 I've seen before, that's gonna go. I don't really know where that is. I don't think I have time to figure that out either. That'll do just to see. I don't actually know where that is. I don't have a fucking clue. Crap. Yeah, no, there will not be miracles here. I'm not figuring this out very quickly at all. Hey. Ah, piss. I might have been able to... whatever. Okay, that was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be, though. I thought that was going to be much more of a beatdown than it ended up being. I don't think I could have won. But I was expecting it to be more humiliating. Oh boy. Okay. I'm gonna do... I really want that, but I don't think that there's a responsible way to go about that. I see the 5s are building up to something. I see the 2s are building up to something. These guys are good. Those guys are good. There's a lot of 3s all in one area, and I don't really trust it. 5s are okay. The Wests, I don't know. Okay, so if I get rid of the 4, I can get to there, but I don't think I can do that. Okay, so these fuckers can go. That should help a little bit. Okay, I'm missing the plum. Alright, so... That 7, I'd love to get rid of it, but I don't know how. Let's try this. This gives me a 5. I see those 6s. Oh, right, that brings me back to this garbage. The 8s are almost a thing. You're racing right the fuck past me.
Alright, let me think. I don't want to do that, because... Alright, we're gonna do this. We're gonna attack it through this angle. This north is... that's problematic. Okay, so get out of there. I'm sorry, but this 8 has gotta go. I'm not thrilled that I'm... Oh, no. Oh, my disappointment is immeasurable. Oh, that was the worst thing you could have told me. Oh, fuck. Alright, well that wouldn't have been possible anyway. Now this is gonna be a big pain. Something's gotta give here. Can I get rid of this? No. That would have been cool. 4s look good. At least I'll get that. Those 6s... What cockheads that they are. That 9 is... Oh, well, this comes back to that west, which is just... rip that dream. Yeah, that's where that is. I know where that is now. Those souths are good. Just get rid of that shit. These 9s... Oh, that's where it is. Alright. Those 2s are good. Those can go. You're fine. Ah, that's gonna suck. Unless I can figure out a way around that, which... Oh, that's not great. Okay. Alright, alright. I wiggled out of it. It wasn't the most finessed thing in the fucking world. Okay. I'm still beating his ass. This can still turn around though. I don't trust that margin. This is a very fickle board. It either goes really well or it really doesn't. It's just easy enough to be hard. That's not in the way of anything. That's the obvious move. Okay, so... These 8s are good. The multipliers are really the dragon here. They... Like, you can think you're doing well, and then you'll look up and you'll be like, oh. Rip me, I guess. I saw that, but I wasn't smart. Let's see here. That's not super fucking helpful. I mean, I gotta get rid of them. Why are these not showing up? Ah, whatever. Like, I can only do so much here. Oh, well, that's unfucking fortunate. Hey, do you want to be helpful? No. Okay, well, I asked. Shit. Okay, so that's still a move. I can't do that. Okay. This has gotta go. I need to move things. I really want that. Oh, I can have it. Okay. That's fine. You can go. I really wish I know, wish I know, wish I know. Ah, dang it. Okay, so that's messy, but fine. This crap is not the best. Okay, so that's where that is, which... Honestly, I thought that was gonna help a little more than it did. Alright, that helps a bit. I need
I need things to be not like this. Oh, he's not even close. What made me think that would help? Okay, so... Okay, then. Alright, you're just being a twerp. I think we have this. We're nearly double him. Which... Yeah, usually that's a good sign. Those 8s look like maybe, but I'm not convinced. No, that would be too easy. Alright. Rip. Definitely in the back, yeah. That he didn't have many options on that one. I don't know what happened. Maybe I was just too fast. That was not as close as it should have been. Okay. So right off the bat. Okay. Good job. Thank you for that. You think the 6s as well. Yeah, I'll follow that. Those guys are triangulated. I'd like to get that. I think I will. I don't think I'll save that. This, that sucks. Okay. I'm gonna do that. Not based on any scientific reason. Mostly based on vibes, honestly. That's in the way of more shit. I'd like to get rid of the 4. I can. Those 8s look... Those 8s are ringing my bells, and I'm not sure why. I hope that doesn't mean something sexual. That's a bit suspect, but let me grab that. Wait, that's what I wanted. What the fuck am I doing? Well, where's the other one? Okay, good. Those 8s are gonna be a problem. But they're always gonna be a problem, is the problem. Like, that's not a unique situation. Yeah, we should just do that now, then. I'd like to find the other one of that before I pull the trigger, but... I don't think I'm gonna get that lucky. Gonna go for this. We're gonna go for the devil we know. We're just gonna hope that turns up in a way that isn't catastrophic to us. Which is a little risky. These guys are not ready. They feel ready, but they're not. Those are actually okay. These are not good. You have been waiting to get rid of for a long while. The 7 I feel like I've seen. Ah, good. Grab you. I could wait, but that's a while to wait, so that's fine. Ooh. Ooh, but I can fix that. But why would I rush? It feels like it's west, 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 west. That gives me... Oh, hi. We'll do that. That's pretty locked in there, not gonna lie. I don't see an outsized importance of the... Ah, fuck, now I do. The 7's gonna go. These I'm gonna double match. That... Oh, that's inconvenient. Okay, so you guys can go. That 4's fine. These should be able to go now. Okay, you guys can go. That gives the south. Those easts are fine. This should be just cleanup now. Unless I fucked up. Alright. Oh wow, are we double? Are we more than double? 6. I could see that, but I don't even need to... I think I should just go for the multipliers. This 2's not great. I know that that's there. There's not much I can do about it now. You guys can go. Yeah, that's where that was. I'm not gonna fuck with that yet. I'm aware of that. I'm gonna
Hold on to it. I know you're there, but you're not blocking anything. 1, 2. No, there's something cooking there. I'm gonna leave it. I don't know where this is. I've decided I don't care. The 6 is fine. That 7 actually looks good. Those 6s are almost ready. They should be now. Should have done that. That was not brilliant. I know there's a 4th one, but I don't know where it is. And honestly, I think we might be okay. I think I can afford a fuck up or 2 or 3 or 8. Those 9s, I can still hold off on them. This, that's not great. Gonna go for that just because I need to free up some of this, and I don't want this to go. I don't want this to go south. That's where the other one is. Fine. Those 8s are actually good to go. 7 I'm gonna release. You guys are not ready yet, which I'm actually surprised about. I thought they would be. Oh, that's where that was. Ah, shit. I don't want to do that. Let's see. So you guys can go. That gives a 2. That does not give me exactly what I want the way I wanted it, but let me see if I can negotiate this. That 9 can go. These can go. That can go. What's under you? Will that help me? Oh man, it's a good thing I did that the way I did. We are still double him. Yikes. Big yikes. I would not want to be him right now. I would not even want to look in the general direction of the score right now. That's gotta hurt. I could probably stop making moves entirely and still win. I'm not gonna risk it because I want to win, but I don't really think it's necessary. I don't think there's really much he can do to save himself. Ooh, shit. Alright. Well, that's not really a shit. It just doesn't matter. That 6 is... Oh, God. He got hit by the no more moves on top of that. Now I'm just sorry for him. Oof. That was the top score. That was my all-time best? Oh, he didn't even do that badly. Oh, he didn't even do that badly. I was just godlike for some reason. Not too bad. Yeah. Especially given that the global average is about half of what I got. Yeah, with Underkitty. We're just wrapping up here on account of my super scratchy throat, but I could do one more. I'm feeling lucky. I could really use a wish right now, wish right now, wish right now. Oh shit. Okay. Don't be stupid, Wolfie. Don't be stupid. Wolfie was almost stupid. Okay. That north, I don't know if I've got a lot of hope for. I might go for the devil I know. That 6 probably has a way out. I
think that's fine. Oh, shit. Well, no, it wasn't, but that's fine. Those 5s are actually good. We'll pretend that that didn't happen. That's not great. Let's try that. This 3... I think that'll be better if I just match it. These guys are adding up to something, but they're not. Not doing much that I want them to do. Shit. I know that 7's not in the way of anything. This is such an easy problem to solve. I'll just do that. This 8 feels like I shouldn't touch it, but I'm... Okay. That 5 can... I know. How's this 3? Does this 3 have a match anywhere? That 1 is suffering. Yeah, sure. What's under there? There's a 9 that can go. Those 8s actually look possible now. Okay. So that'll do. Those are actually good. I know I saw that somewhere. This house has gotta go. I thought I saw a 4. I did see a 4. Alright, so we're gonna go for that first. That's not the best. It's not the worst. I kind of want to save that. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'll try. Okay, apparently that's possible. That's not gonna help me, is it? That 9's gotta go, this 7's gotta go, this has gotta go, that's gotta go, that's gotta go. These fuckers are gonna go, that's gonna go. Gonna grab that, that's gonna go, that's gonna go, this is gonna go, this gotta go there, this is fine here, da 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 da. We'll just close this up and do better next time. Yeah, I'll put a round in for you, dude, don't you worry. Ah, piece of shit, god damn it, fucking son of a... Alright, here we go. That 9 has no hope, so we're just gonna blast it. This is fine, we're gonna go here. I think the multiplier is gonna fuck me here. I'm getting that flavor. This feels confusing and I'm not sure why. That's trianged. That's weird, I'm gonna avoid that. I don't know why, I just got spooked by it. Well, some of this has to go. That 4, I'm actually gonna just nuke. That 3 I'm gonna nuke. This is nukeable. Those are actually fine now. These 7s... They're still confusing. Okay. Those 5s are there. I know that's probably not the best move ever, but it's the devil I know, it's the devil I see, it's the devil I understand. And if I understand it, I can kill it. Okay, so grab that. This 2 can go. That's 6... Alright, we'll wait on that. That's there still. Alright, we're gonna go there. The 7s I'm not gonna wait for. Oh, I thought I had that. That was a little premature. Okay, that's gonna be annoying no matter what I do, no matter when I wait, so I'm just gonna get rid of it now. 5s are not great. Gonna get rid of this shit. 4's fine, that can go. That's gotta go. This 8... Those 8s should be ready by now, but I'm just not seeing it. Okay, these materialized. Maybe then things will make sense in that, but I'm not seeing it yet. Okay, you gotta go. You gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go. Oh, I might be alright. Oh, I'm more than double his shit again. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh
boy, I guess I'm murdery today. Yeah, I don't think I have to push this very hard. That's compacted, but I think I'll wait. 5 I feel like I could do something with. It's really the 2s I want. Let's try this. 9s can go. I'd like to get rid of that. I don't know if that's in the cards. Yes. Okay. I don't think I need to push that hard. I think I just need to keep going. Which means I can't get stuck. The problem is I get stuck. Okay, you gotta go. 'Cause I see that. That's 6. Oh, please tell me I didn't just fuck myself. I'm like 90% sure I fucked myself. Oh well. It's not gonna matter. $69. Nice. Alright, on that note, I'll end it. But for the bird fact of the day, did you know that how many types of birds fly? It's easier to ask that question in reverse. So, most birds fly. Ratites, which are ostriches, emus, etc., they don't fly. Penguins don't fly. Kiwis don't fly. Some parrots have lost the ability to fly, especially the ones in New Zealand. Kiwis I mentioned. I believe chickens can fly. I think you need to... That's actually a good question. I can't believe I don't know the answer to that. Can chickens fly? They fly. Just badly. They're all government agents. Yeah, pretty much. That's like... I think that's like a Reddit thing. That's all the birds that I know of that don't fly. I'm sure I'm being dumb and forgetting one, but I don't remember. But did you know that when America was founded, Ben Franklin wanted the national bird not to be the bald eagle? Emu's part of the rat-type family, with ostriches, emus, cassowaries, emus, ostriches. There's another one I'm forgetting that's in the rat-type family, but they're all rat-types. They're basically like... They're like the oldest lineage of birds that split off from birds. And they all can't fly. They're like super old. But when America was founded, Benjamin Franklin actually wanted the turkey to be the national bird, not the bald eagle. And his reasoning was
that bald eagles are thieving assholes, which is true. They steal fish and kill from other creatures. They're thieving assholes, and turkeys are proud and honorable birds. For whatever reason, that didn't catch on. Probably because turkeys are also assholes. At least the males. I've gotten attacked by turkeys multiple times. Yeah, American history. Yeah, so the bald eagle became the national symbol of America, which, from like a world history perspective, yeah, seems legit. Or, not us, but this shit our government has done is not the greatest. No! Bald eagles are like surprisingly clumsy looking compared to other birds of prey. Like, red-tailed hawks usually look much more put together than bald eagles. And red-tailed hawks are common as fuck. You can't throw a stone on the bloody highway without fucking finding one of those. But yeah. Chat, I'm tired as fuck. So I'm gonna call it here. Founding fathers wore wigs, and bald eagle kind of looks like it's wearing a fake wig. Actually, the root of pigeons are actually pretty fabulous. Here, I'll talk about pigeons later, but the word bald eagle does not actually refer to bald as in the head is without feathers or hair. Bald was an old word for white. So, actually, hold on. Etymology of bald. Yeah, Middle English, probably from a base meaning white patch, marked, streaked with white. So instead of like hairless, it meant like white. But pigeons, actually the pigeons that we know in like cities and shit, they're actually feral pigeons. Like, they were domesticated and then they were released. And they've been interbreeding and kind of like having free love. They're just big hippies that eat trash. You get these really quite interesting patterns on rock pigeons. I've seen some absolutely stunning pigeons in New York City, like with beautiful streaks of white and iridescence. And it's all because some fucker let him go. But I have a lot of stories about birds that have been let go in America and what sort of chaos they get up to. Bald eagles, before they're full grown, don't have white noggins. You are right. They're mostly brown, and like their white streaks are all over their body, and they look like a mess, and then they get older and the white finds its way to the head, and then they look a little bit more put together, but not that much more put together. Another bird that's like that are seagulls, ring-billed gulls, herring gulls, most gulls. Yeah, I've been seeing some bald eagles coming down where I live lately too. They didn't used to be here, but they're chilling here now. But seagulls, when they're young, they're brown, and then as they get older, they get more white, and then when they're 4 years old, they're like a crisp white. They don't have any brown left. They've got all their markings in the right place, and they're ready to breed and make more brown chickies. But yeah, seagulls take like 4 years to reach sexual maturity. And you can theoretically look at a seagull and kind of know how old it is. I'm not that good. Not by a long shot. But yeah, I think I think my voice is dying. So I'm gonna leave this here. In the meantime, though, do not eat or drink any questionable substances. Make smart decisions, do not die. And dying is absolutely forbidden, and I will see all of you wonderful people at a later time. Take care, guys.